Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down this week's stop on the PGA Tour, the Farmers Insurance Open, taking place at Torrey Pines, which is a kind of mixed reviews golf course. A golf course that I particularly like watching for this tournament, but I don't necessarily think it makes for a great U.S. Open venue. We're going to break that down, as well as kind of this whole event this week, what you need to know about the course and how you need to, or what you need to know and what you need to do to pick out some successful golfers, whether you are playing DFS, whether you are betting, or whether you are playing one and done this week. We've got it all covered here on this episode. We're going to break down the course itself, and then we're going to highlight some of the golfers that we feel like are good fits for this course and should play well at this course and need to be in your DFS lineups and on your betting cards and in your one and done entries. Now, also, if you are interested in playing PGA Best Ball, check out the description on YouTube as well as on the audio feed. We recorded a video on Sunday where we went over just kind of the basics of the overview of the format of PGA Best Ball, as well as some tips and some strategies for Best Ball. And then we ended the show with a live draft. So if you were looking to play PGA Best Ball on Underdog, that is your one-stop shop for strategy, overview, rules, just everything you need to know to be successful at PGA Best Ball. Now, this is an interesting tournament because it is a Wednesday start. I like that a lot because it's not going head-to-head against the NFL Conference Championship games. And plus, it gives me something to watch on a Wednesday afternoon where normally there wouldn't be other things to watch. So with it being a Wednesday start, everything is going to be a little bit quicker this week. Do not forget to set your lineups. Do not forget to set your one-and-done entries because the tournament is starting a little bit earlier. So with the tournament starting a little bit earlier, we don't have any time to waste. So let's go ahead and dive into Torrey Pines and what kind of skills should play well here at this golf course. All right, so if you're watching this on YouTube, we have got a video of a kind of a flyover of Torrey Pines South that Golf Digest made. Credit to them because this is a very visually appealing golf course. Like, it's a golf course that's going to look good on your TV screen. It's on a very nice set of property, in the suburban San Diego area. I guess you'd call it suburban San Diego. But it's just a beautiful golf course to look at. But the problem is I don't think it makes for a great major championship venue. I think it makes for a great host to this tournament. It's going to be one that looks good on TV, and it's going to be fun to watch this weekend. But there are some architectural problems with it, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and start this off by breaking down Torrey Pines. So this tournament is going to be played at two courses: Torrey Pines South Course and Torrey Pines North Course. The South Course is the one that has hosted the U.S. Opens. It is the one that is going to have 3 rounds played at it this week. The North Course is going to have 1 round played at it this week. Basically, what's going to happen is on Wednesday and Thursday, the first 2 rounds, everybody's going to play around at the South Course and everybody's going to play around at the North Course, and then they're going to make the cut, and then the entire weekend is played on the South Course. Now, the South Course is a par 72. And it is almost 7,800 yards. It is one of the longest courses that is on the regular PGA Tour rotation. The North Course is almost 500 yards shorter. So basically, if you're playing Showdown DFS, play guys that are playing the North Course. It is a significantly easier track, and a lot of times your first round leader is going to come from the North Course. A lot of times the lower scores in the first 2 rounds are going to come from the North Course. It's just an easier course, bottom line. So basically, a lot of guys who can make the cut here at this event consistently do their damage on the North Course and then just kind of try to tread water on the South Course, the round that they have to play that before the cut, and then not do exactly so well over the weekend. So the guys who play well at this course, have good finishes at this event, are guys who have played well at the South Course. Another interesting tidbit: the South Course features Poa annua greens and the North Course features bent grass greens. And so the North Course is a lot easier to putt on. There's a lot more made putts on the North Course, which also contributes to it being significantly easier. Now, as I mentioned, this is one of the South Course is going to be kind of where we focus our attention now. The South Course is one of the longest tracks on all of the PGA Tour and is one of the tougher tracks on all of the PGA Tour. The 4 par 3s that are on the South Course average 215 yards, which is very, very long. And basically all the par 4s are going to be in between 450 and 500 yards. There's not really a whole lot of short par 4s. And with those long par 3s, what you're going to end up with this week is there's going to be a lot of approach shots that are going to be coming in from 150 yards plus, 150 to 175, 175 to 200, and 200 yards plus are all going to be featured a lot. So what ends up happening here is, with a lot of the holes being very homogeneous at Torrey Pines, there's basically a similar strategy every single hole more or less, and that is drive the ball very far and try to hit the fairway, and then hit a long iron shot into a very small green, and hopefully you are able to hit that long iron in a way that it can hold the green and be close to the hole. Now, that can kind of be derailed a little bit because the fairways here are very narrow. They're actually the third narrowest fairways on the PGA Tour, as we've got an ad for Peacock now on YouTube. They're the third narrowest fairways on the PGA Tour. So it can be difficult to hit these fairways, which is not a good proposition. It's not where you want to be because the rough here is very thick. It is very hard to hit out of the rough. And so what tends to happen, because a lot of the holes are very homogeneous, a lot of the holes are very similar, is you end up with similar strategies per hole. All of the holes are kind of asking for the same skill set, and so you tend to see golfers with that skill set perform well here year in and year out. And so it tends to be a very predictive course year in and year out, and it tends to be a course where it is fairly easy to predict the winner year in and year out because it's asking you to use the same skill set every single hole. That's why I don't think it is exactly a great major championship venue, because there's not a whole lot of strategy. You're going to step up to the tee, you're going to hit driver and hope to hit the fairway. And if you don't hit the fairway, then you are going to hope to be able to get on the green by using a long iron from the rough. And if you are in the fairway, guess what? You're still using a long iron. And so that's why I don't think it makes for a great major championship venue. Now, also keep in mind here that the greens are very small, so you have to be very skilled with those long irons to get them to hold on those greens. And so what ends up happening is a lot of the best players in the world play well here because guess what? A lot of the best players in the world are some of the best long iron players in the world. Now, an elite short game can win here, like when Patrick Reed won this event in 2021. So Patrick Reed basically won this event when driving accuracy in the event was very low, green and regulation percentage was very low, and so Patrick Reed was a guy who was, scrambling and doing a very good job of it. And so he was getting up and down at a higher percentage than everybody else. And when the course played more difficult, that was a skill set that he was able to call on to win. So I don't want to get it in your head that this course just plays to bombers or just plays to guys who can hit long irons, but that does tend to be the most common skill set used to win. But you can see some of the short gamers turn on to win this tournament. But the thing is here also is that with the course being fairly predictable, course history ends up being super important. Most of the previous winners here had a previous top 10 at this course before winning. The one exception was Jon Rahm, who won this event in his debut here. And then Jon Rahm later on would go on to win the U.S. Open at this course in 2021. Now, we also haven't really mentioned the POA greens yet. So this POA grass that these greens are here at Torrey Pines, we are going to see POA again at Pebble Beach. We are going to see POA again at Riviera. There's some East Coast courses that use POA or East Coast courses that use POA grass as well. But this West Coast POA, that was tough to say, is not the same as the East Coast. And so what tends to happen on this West Coast POA, it's a very bumpy, uneven grass. And so what you get is there's a lot of short putts that end up being wobbly here. It's very hard to make short putts. And so you tend to see aggressive putters and guys who are used to putting on POA putt well here. What I mean by aggressive putters is if you have a 5-foot putt and you just barely hit that thing 5 feet, it might wobble in the POA and veer off course. If you hit that 5-foot putt designed to go 7 or 8 feet, it is going to hold its line because it's coming in a little bit faster. So aggressive putters tend to do better here, but also guys who have experience putting on POA and kind of know that the tools of the trade that is required to put on this very unique strand of grass. So what that also means is if it's a difficult putting course, that evens things out for poor putters, because if everybody's missing putts within 10 feet, then the guys who normally miss putts within 10 feet aren't at a disadvantage from the rest of the field. So that is why you've also seen some poor putters play very well here at this course. Now let's go ahead and break down the key stats here at Torrey. So what I have as the key stats here, if you are making a model or looking for some particular skill sets to use, the key stats I believe are strokes gained off the tee. I want guys who are going to be able to put themselves in good positions off the tee to give themselves a chance where they can hit a good approach shot. So strokes gained off the tee is one I will use. Driving distance as well as fairways gained, because the bottom line is this: if you're long off the tee, you're going to be putting yourself in an advantage because you're going to have less of a club into the greens. But I also want fairways gained because I want that distance that you're gaining to be in the fairway. I want you to have that advantage. Also, it has been apparently flood watch in the San Diego area this week. And so this course is likely to be very, very wet before Wednesday. So if lift clean in place rules are in place, then you are going to have a massive advantage being in the fairway where you can pick your ball off, wipe it off, and give yourself a perfect lie as opposed to being at the mercy of the muddy rough. So being in the fairway this week is probably going to be more important than ever before here at Torrey Pines. I would also prioritize strokes gains approach as well as proximity from all ranges 150 plus. Look, all the approaches this week are going to be long approaches, so I want guys who are going to be good at those long approaches. I would not prioritize short game and putting in a model. I think bogey avoidance could be something that you could use. I like to use bogey avoidance at all difficult golf courses. Basically, if you put yourself in a bad position, can you recover and make par? I also think the course history here is fairly important, like we said earlier. Now, my two comp courses for this one are going to be Riviera, which is a little bit up the ways from San Diego in Los Angeles. It is also Poa Greens. It is also a long and difficult golf course. And so it's one where you've seen a lot of guys have crossover success at. Max Homa and John Rahm have won both events, the Farmers Insurance Open and the Genesis Invitational. Tony Finau has played well at both those events as well. There's just a lot of guys that tend to play well at both. And then U.S. Open host courses, I would classify as a comp course for this one. This is going to be pretty close to like U.S. Open conditions this week. So if guys have played well in the U.S. Open, which believe it or not, there was a U.S. Open that was here, then I would think that that gives them an advantage for being well here with this particular setup. Now let's look at the course history tool on Data Golf and talk about who the best golfers at this course have been. And so when you look at the board, Colin Morikawa has the highest average strokes gained here at this course, thanks in large part to a third place finish last year and then fourth at the U.S. Open when it was here in 2021. Sam Stevens, as a debutant last year, also gained 2.25 strokes per round. And then rounding out the top five, Brandt Snedeker, Xander Schauffele, and Sungjae Im. Will Zalatoris, Hideki Matsuyama, Jason Day, Tony Finau, and Sahith Theegala round out the top 10. What I really like about Data Golf also, and again, Data Golf is entirely free. I'm not paid to endorse them, but I use a lot of their tools for free. They will also have the stats for the North Course. And so guys that have played the North Course well in their career, Aaron Rai, Garrick Higo, Alex Smalley, Taylor Moore, and Taylor Montgomery is the top five. Taiga Semikawa, Callum Tarrant, Sahith Theegala, Tony Finau, and Bo Hostler round out the top 10. So if you're looking to play Showdown DFS, use that tool over there on Data Golf. It's that way you can see who just does play the North Course as well as the South Course pretty well. All right, so that is all you need to know about Torrey Pines, the course. Let's go ahead and take a look at the field and figure out who we need to be targeting this week. Now, before we take a look at the board and discuss all of our options this week for DFS and betting and one and done, I do want to mention if you want more information from me, there are places where you can get more from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. You can also join the Fantasy Corner Discord. Link is in the descriptions below. In there, we will talk golf DFS as well as college basketball, NBA, NFL. All sports are covered in the Fantasy Corner Discord. We've got a lot of smart people who are always in there chatting, bouncing ideas off each other, and then sweating it out together. And it's a blast to be a part of. And if you're looking for people to talk golf DFS with or just, talk DFS with, I could not recommend them more. It's a blast community to be a part of. I also write a full article to my Patreon every single week for golf as well as college basketball, where I profile my core plays as well as kind of my lineup strategy and attack strategy for each tournament and just how I am building for the week. So, we're going to talk about a lot of options here from the rest of this show. If you want to know who actually makes the cut and makes my lineups, the Patreon is the place that you can go for that. And I also do a pretty good strategy breakdown for DFS purposes of just where I think ownership is going to go and how I think you can build a lineup that's going to take advantage of that by certain lineup constructions. Also, if you're looking to try something new in this PGA Tour season, head on over to signupexpert.com/Mike'sPicks. It's SignUpExpert. They give you the best offers and promo codes for any DFS player, prop, or sportsbook site. So if you're looking to be a new user for any of those, that is the place you need to go so that way you can get your best offer and promo code. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the field now. So I'm going to be honest, this is going to be kind of a shorter segment probably than what you are used to for the just breaking down the players. And it's because I think that this course, with it being as homogenous as it is, it requires very certain skill sets. And so I'm going to be looking for guys who possess that skill set. And I don't think that that's, exactly rocket science to figure out. Now, the good news is The top four guys in the field all possess that very unique skill set that you're going to need. All four of these guys near the top, Schauffele, Cantlay, Morikawa, and Homa, are all very good long iron players and very good drivers of the golf ball, just in different ways. So, how can we differentiate between these four players? Well, let's break it down. Xander Schauffele is the hometown kid this week. He is from San Diego. He apparently played this course all the time when he was in high school. And it kind of showed up with his history here at this course. He owns a 13th finish as well as a runner-up here at Torrey Pines. And then the American Express, he finished third last week, and he gained strokes in every category at the stadium course. That is what we like to see with Xander, where every facet of his game is working. Generally speaking, he is an above-average player in every facet of the game, so we like to see when all of those facets are firing on all cylinders. So I think this could be a very good week for Xander Schauffele. If I were ranking this entire field, I would probably have him at 1. However, that does not mean that I would have Patrick Cantlay at 2, even though he's second on the board on DraftKings. He was 15th at the U.S. Open here in 2021, but he's never had a top 50 in this event in 2 tries. And to me, it says a little bit that this is an event that generally has a pretty good field, generally has a pretty good purse. He's from California, so the travel wouldn't be absurd. And he hasn't came out and played here a whole lot. So I got to believe that Patrick Cantlay doesn't feel like this is exactly a great course for him. And so that kind of just doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence in playing him. Now, on paper, he is a good driver of the golf ball. He is a good putter on POA, and he is a good long iron player. But also, the course history concerns me, and he hasn't been great with his irons in either of his last 2 events at the American Express or the Century. He really gave a lot away with that closing 76 at the American Express. So Cantlay is probably not a guy that I will be playing a lot of this week. The guy that I think is the second best golfer in the field is Collin Morikawa. And I think he's going to be the most popular pick on DraftKings. I think he's going to be the most popular bet this week. Why do I think that? Well, his history here is outstanding. He was third in this tournament last year. He was fourth at the U.S. Open here in 2021. He is not a super long player, but he is accurate. And also, he's accurate and good with his long irons. And so with Morikawa, if he's going to put himself in the fairway, that's going to be an advantage over everybody else that he has. And if he's better with his long irons than everybody else, then he's just going to be able to roll over everybody in this field. And I think that he is right behind Xander, in my opinion, in terms of 1 and 2, in terms of most likely to win this event. And I'm going to be playing a lot of each of them in my DFS lineups this week. Now, next on the board is the last guy in the 10K range on DraftKings, Max Homa, who is only the defending champ at this event. He also owns a missed cut 18th and 9th here at this event. He also has a win at my comp course, Riviera. And Max Homa is a guy that loves playing golf in California. So I think he's in an absolute smash spot. The one concern would be that his putting has let him down in each of the last 2 tournaments he played, the Hero World Challenge and the Century. But he's generally a good putter. Generally, especially on POA. So I'm hoping that he can kind of, bounce that back, because the rest of his game has been cooking. So if he can just flip the putter, he is going to be A-okay to try to defend that title. Now, the 9K range on DraftKings is really interesting because I do think you can start your lineup with 2 or maybe even 3 of these guys. But when you look at the 9K range, they're literally going to fall into one of 2 categories. They're either a course horse, guys who have played historically very well here in the past, or a course fit, where they're guys whose games on paper should translate well to this course. So let's go ahead and break that down. Sungjae Im, course horse, has played well here in the past, a very elite long iron player in his own right. Really only had 1 bad round at the Century with that 71 on Sunday. I'm not super concerned about it. Sungjae Im is not a bad play. And I think of all the plays in the 10 and the 9K range on DraftKings, I think he will be one of the lower owned. Why do I think that? Well, I think Ludwig Aubert will be super highly owned. So he is not a guy who has played this course before. However, he is a guy who I think this course fits his game superbly, because Ludwig is one of the top 20 longest drivers in this field, and he is also well above average in driving accuracy. We mentioned, on the course preview, how you want to be very far out there with a driver in the fairway. Well, guess what? Ludwig is going to be able to do that. And oh, by the way, he also happens to be a good long iron player with a small sample size. So I think he's in an absolute smash spot. It would not shock me to see him end up winning this tournament. I think he's probably the best bet to win when you consider odds. I think he is probably the most value for your buck. Jason Day has won this event twice, and in the last 2 years, he's finished seventh and third. And so I kind of think that's a pretty good spot for him. And I think he's a little bit overpriced, but I'm absolutely willing to play him just because of that course history here. And I'm totally fine with playing Jason Day this week. The only concern would be with the putter at the American Express didn't cooperate, but this is a different style of greens, and the putter's easy to flip. Speaking of flipping the putter, let's talk Tony Finau. So if you consider course history not as an average but a total, no player has gained more strokes at Torrey Pines over the last decade than Tony Finau. He loves this course. He plays it every year. He's great at it. He had a ninth place finish here last year. He also owns 4 other top 10 finishes at this event. Now, over the fall, the putter was a disaster for him. But he has kind of bounced back. He gained strokes putting at the American Express. And so if you're going to get Tony Finau with his skill set of being an elite driver of the golf ball and really good with his long irons, that's what we know for a fact about Tony Finau. And his putters, he's going to gain strokes. This is a great spot for Tony Finau. Like I play Tony Finau a lot anyway. I'm going to be playing him a ton this week. Minwoo Lee is a guy who has not played this event, but I think he is a superb fit for it. He's one of the longest hitters on the PGA Tour. He is a rising up-and-coming star, and he's a guy who's also been world traveled, right? Like, you look at what he's done all over the world in the fall, and he was outstanding. 3 straight top 4 finishes, and then back in the top 10 twice before coming over onto the PGA Tour for the new calendar year. So he's a guy who's used to all kinds of conditions, can win at any course, and his skill set fits this one particularly well because he is really long off the tee and he's a really good long iron player. I really like Minwoo Lee this week. Eric Cole is at $9,000 even. Look, he has 2 missed cuts at this course, but on paper, I think he's a pretty good course fit. One of his weaknesses is driving accuracy, but this week, everybody's going to be missing fairways. And so there's no real difference in missing the fairway by 6 inches or 6 yards. And so if Eric Cole's going to be missing with the driver, it's not going to hurt him a whole lot. And he generally is a really good approach player with his long irons and generally an above average putter. So I think this could be a decent spot for Eric Cole. I would probably rather pay up for Minwoo or Tony Finau, but I don't think this is a terrible spot for Eric Cole, all things considered. All right, let's take a quick breather and then let's break down the 8K and belows. All right, so this is a week where I'm going to use what I would call inverted roster construction on DraftKings. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of guys up top that I like, and there's a lot to like about a lot of the guys up top. And given that this event is generally won by one of the better players in the field, what I'm probably going to do this week is play a lot of different guys at the top of the board and not a whole lot of guys as we go down the board and kind of really concentrate on a few value plays that have the exact skill set that I'm looking for. And just hope that those guys are able to make the cut, and then hope that by switching out a lot of the guys up top that I'm able to find a lineup where I end up with the winner and a few other guys that end up placing in top 5. And again, that's a pure DFS strategy, but that's just my thinking this week since this course does require such a unique skill set. Now, who has that skill set? Well, Keegan Bradley is in the 8K range, and he has a runner up here, as well as 2 other top 5s at this course. He is a really good total driver of the golf ball. He drives it pretty far, drives it pretty straight. And that was shown with his T2 at the Sony Open. And so I think Keegan's in a pretty good spot at a course he knows well. Pretty solid play, and I hope he goes a little bit overlooked with all the great plays in the 9K range that are above him and some of the good plays in the 8K range that are below him, like Harris English, who finished 3rd at the U.S. Open here back in 2021. Also coming in strong with a top 10 at the Sony Open. A lot to like about Harris English this week. There's also a lot to like about Sahith Theegala, California guy. He's from Southern California, who finished 4th here last year and then 25th the year before that. He finished 2nd earlier this season at the Century before missing the cut at the Sony Open. But we said on our Sony Open episode that was not a great course fit for Sahith. This one is because he tends to miss with his driver pretty big, and there's no punishment for a big miss here because if you miss, it's just grass. You're in the same rough that the other guys are in if they miss the fairway by 6 inches. So I think that plays well for his game. He's also a great short gamer. So if this does end up being a little bit more of a difficult test, he does have the ability to get up and down and avoid those bogeys. And then also with him being from California, I'm hoping he can call on his history of putting on POA greens. Another guy that I like is Adrian Meronk. Look, he's just been playing really good golf all around the world. He won at the Andalusia Masters. He won at the Italian Open back in May. Like, he's got a slew of good finishes on the DP World Tour, and now he's finally making his first start of the year on the PGA Tour. He's a pretty long hitter, and he's really good with his long irons. I think Adrian Moran checks the boxes we want to check this week. Daniel Berger and Will Zalatoris are both wild cards to me because both of them made the cut last week at the American Express coming off of injury. Berger was able to turn it into a T39, and Will Zalatoris was able to turn it into a T34. And honestly, with Zalatoris, I don't think that course at the American Express fit his game at all. So to me, that's a good sign for him. And both of these guys have great history here at this course, great history in the state of California as a whole for Daniel Berger. And Will Zalatoris just checks off all the boxes for what we want in a skill set. Long, straight, good with his long irons. So if you're willing to go with those two guys coming off their injury, I think that the upside, there's quite a bit of it. Like, just with their course history and how they played last week, I think both those two guys have a ton of upside. And I'm hoping that they come in lower owned like both of them did last week. Now, after that, you do have Luke List in the field this week. He is a former winner here. He won back in 2022, beat Will Zalatoris. And what we know about Luke List, he's a great driver of the golf ball. He's great with his long irons. He's a terrible putter, but guess what? On a course where everybody is going to struggle to putt, that helps him out a little bit. So this is a great spot for Luke List. Adam Svensson, long term, is a really good long approach player. And so he's been playing some pretty decent golf here to start the year. I don't mind going to Adam Svensson here in this tournament either. And I think that the impression of Adam Svensson is that he plays better at these shorter, more positional golf courses. Well, guess what? This is just a longer, more positional golf course. So I think that will bode pretty well here for Svensson. Akshay Bhatia, look, I mention him almost every week. I play him almost every week. Yeah, what more can I say, right? He is a very talented player who is both long and accurate off the tee, who is really good with his long irons, and his one problem has always been the putter. But again, like I said with Luke List, if everybody else is going to miss putts, then that only bodes well for Akshay because he's just going to miss them the same way everybody else does. After that, you have Ryo Hisatsune, who is one of the hottest golfers coming in. He was kind of an unknown coming over from the DP World Tour, but he has been great in his first two events, 30th at the Sony Open, 11th at the American Express. I just think he's good. Like, I don't know enough about his skill set long term to make a huge evaluation on him, but I do know that he just is playing some good golf right now, and I think it's quite possible that he just really is one of the 20 best golfers in this field, and we don't know it yet. Aaron Rai is another guy who has good course history here. He has a top 10 at this course. Historically, he's a good long iron player. I'm not concerned about the missed cut at the American Express. That is not a course that fits his game well. He plays better at more difficult golf courses. So I think this is right up Aaron Rai's wheelhouse, and I like the discount that we're getting at only $7,400. Sam Ryder should have won this tournament last year, for being honest. He ended up coming in fourth. He kind of just folded down the stretch on Saturday night and allowed Max Homa to come up and get it from behind. But I just think that, he fits the course pretty well. Like, that's, he was able to play well here last year because he's a good driver of the golf ball and he's generally a pretty good approach player. And so I think that should play out well for Sam Ryder. Justin Suh and Thomas Dietrich, I like. These are two guys who are generally pretty good putters, generally good players with their irons, can play in all kinds of environments. I'm cool with both of them. But a guy that I really like is Austin Eckroat. And you're not hearing a whole lot about Austin Eckroat this week from other places. So here's why I am on him. He is just right around average in distance, but he's got above average driving accuracy, which is what we want this week, right? Like, we don't want a short hitter, but we prefer a longer one, but we really want him to be in the fairway this week, especially if it ends up being lift, clean, and place. He has also flipped his approach play in the swing season. What I mean by that is, over the summer and fall, he was not good on approach, but starting with the Fortinet, he totally flipped his approach play and became a positive approach player. It was really good with his irons from the fall all the way to the start of this season. And at this event, he was already good. So let me backtrack a little bit. At this event, he's missed the cut twice, but he gained 2 strokes putting here last year. It was his approach and his off the tee game that let him down. Well, right now, he's got the approach and off the tee game better than it was this time last year, and we already know he knows how to putt here. So if he marries all that together, he could be a very solid play that I don't think a whole lot of people are going to be on at $7,100 on DraftKings. Now, dipping down in the 6K range, Sam Stevens and Vincent Norman hit the mold for what we want at this course. They're longer hitters, great with the driver, play much better at long courses than short courses. Those are two guys that I am going to be on this week down here in this range. And then Robert McIntyre is another guy that I like. He's got a deceptively good major championship history. Like, he seems to always make the cut at majors, which are where you get difficult conditions. And so I think that should play well for him this week, his history of playing well at difficult golf courses. And then further down, I do like Joseph Bramlett as well as Chad Ramey. Long term, these are guys who are just really good long iron players and really good at long approaches. And so those are two guys here in that price range that I think fit that. Even though they're not coming in with great recent form, I'm willing to buy the long term skill set that I know is going to play well here at this course. All right, so that does it for the board, taking a look at it from a DFS and betting perspective. Let's go ahead now and take a look at One and Done. So One and Done has had an interesting start to the season, no matter where you are playing, right? Because pretty much nobody's picked a winner yet. And if anybody in your One and Done had Grayson Murray or Nick Dunlap, then I want to know where they found the almanac that Biff had in Back to the Future Part 2, because that's a very niche reference to a movie that's 30 years old. But pretty much the only way you would have known that those two guys were going to win is if you were from the future. And so that's the good news, is nobody's picked the winner, so that nobody's really separated themselves from the pack yet, right? So this is actually a event where I think there's going to be a lot of strategy that comes into play. The reason why is because we have some of the world's best golfers here, and they're all good course fits, like Xander, like Homa, like Morikawa, right? But this is not a signature event. There is not a massive purse in this event. So generally speaking, you want to save the best golfers in the world for the events that are going to feature more money, right? And so I don't think I'm going to be playing the guys from the top of the board this week, even though, again, I think they're great fits for the course. I think this is a great spot to deploy them, but I would rather save those four big dogs for majors or for signature events where I can get more money out of them. Like, pretty much this week, a win is going to be like just finishing like top 7 at a major or signature event. And so I think that's a lot easier to do than trying to find the exact winner this week. So anyway, what that means I'm going to do this week is I'm going to go a little bit down the board. And I think that there's some guys that are in really good spots. We mentioned Keegan Bradley. We mentioned Jason Day. We mentioned Sahith Theegala. We mentioned Tony Finau. Sungjae M, not in a bad spot. Ludwig Aubert, not in a bad spot. Minwoo Lee, not in a bad spot. So what I will say for this week is I'm not going to touch Minwoo or Ludwig or Sungjae, because all of them play in a lot of events. And so there's going to be some events over the spring and the summer that are going to be a weaker field where they're going to be one of the best golfers in the field. And so I'm kind of good leaving them for when that situation arises. So what I'm thinking this week is I'm thinking of picking in this little range right here. Keegan, Jason Day, Sahith Theegala, Tony Finau. That's about where I want to be, because I don't think I necessarily want to use any of these guys at any of the signature events. And I don't necessarily know if there's going to be a whole lot better course fits for them to pop up. So for me this week, looking at these 4 guys, Sahith has a lot of different courses that you can use him at. Tony Finau is the defending champ at the Mexico Open, as well as the Houston Open. So I'm probably going to save him for one of those. So this week, for the one and done pick that I make here on the show, the one I do in the one and done league that I am running is not going to be the same as this one. But the one and done pick that I'm going to make here, I'm going to pick Jason Day here. I think that's a pretty solid pick given his course history, given that I'm probably not going to want to use him further down the road. And I'm not going to pick the one for our show one and done on here, because a lot of people that are in that one and done watch this, and I don't want them to know who I'm picking. I'm currently sitting at 10th out of 14, even though I have had 2 guys make the cut. I haven't really done a whole lot after I made the cut, either my 2 guys. So I do want to try to find a winner, but I also picked Jason Day in that one and done last week, so I'm going to have to find somebody else. So anyway, that does it for one and done strategy for this week. Save your big dogs. And then find a guy that you're comfortable with based off of their course history and the shape they're in coming in. All right, so that does it for this episode, y'all. That does it for our preview of the 2024 Farmers Insurance Open. Hopefully, we're able to give you guys some great information here in this episode that is going to allow you to build a winning DFS lineup, make some good bets this week, and make the right one and done selection. If you like what you saw here on YouTube, please hit the like button. It really helps me out a lot. And if you like what you heard on the audio, please rate and review. Again, it really does help me out a lot, y'all. I appreciate those so much. And then lastly, while you're at it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you can be with us for the rest of this PGA Tour calendar season. Remember, the best ball episode linked is in the description. So go check that out if you're interested in playing some PGA best ball on Underdog. And then one last reminder, this tournament starts on Wednesday. So make sure you get those lineups in before lock on Wednesday morning. All right. That does it for this episode, guys. So thank you guys for watching and listening. Best of luck to you this week, and I will see you guys next time.